Growing criticism of the government's health and social care plans as MPs prepare to vote. The Prime Minister claims his tax rises will raise badly needed billions for the sector, but there are concerns about who'll really bear the brunt of the cost.
Working people will pay higher tax. Those in need will still lose their homes to pay for care, and he can't even say if the NHS backlog will be cleared.
They're going to vote against plans to fix the backlogs and fix social care. Vote Labour, Mr Speaker. Wait longer.
Also tonight, tied security at France's biggest terror trial, 6 years after Islamist extremists struck Paris. Here, a rising tide of waste as worsening driver shortages hit bin collections. And
from Great Britain, Emma Raducanu.
Raducanu fever at the US Open. Our newest tennis star serves up a smile and some killer shots at the quarter-finals.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. In less than an hour's time, MPs are expected to vote on Boris Johnson's plan to put up the cost of national insurance to support the NHS and social care. Now, it's hoped the government's new tax will raise around £12 billion a year. But ministers have had to defend the plan from growing criticism tonight. There is concern that the money isn't enough and could actually be swallowed up by the NHS before any of it reaches social care. Despite this, MPs are expected to give the green light to the new tax, as our Deputy Political Editor Anushka Astana reports.
It felt as if today was going to be difficult for the Prime Minister, after days of Tories stepping up to oppose his tax rise for the NHS and social care. But in the end, it all felt remarkably calm, with few members of his party wanting to rock the boat. By the time Boris Johnson arrived in the Commons, he was able to sell his policy in front of cheering MPs.
What this plan for health and social care does is deal after decades with the catastrophic costs faced by millions of people.
That's who benefits. Labour turned the focus to who pays.
A care worker earning the minimum wage doesn't get a pay rise under this plan, but does get a tax rise. In what world is that fair?
Out of that minestrone of nonsense has floated a crouton of fact. He is going to vote against the measures tonight.
That's right, Labour's going to oppose the policy, while almost all Tories will vote with the PM. But some will abstain. Does it all feel a bit unconservative?
Yes, to me it does, I'm afraid. The idea that you just reach for the tax lever to throw money into a bottomless pit of spending, such as the NHS at times feels, even though they do brilliant work and clearly we're all very grateful, is something I'd expect of other parties.
But it's not just the tax rise causing concern in Westminster. A second worry is that the NHS could suck up all the money. After all, this 1.25 percentage point increase in national insurance will raise £36 billion over 3 years, but only £5.4 billion is earmarked for social care. In Darwin, part of the Lancashire constituency of another worried Conservative MP, there is a third concern: voters realising what the tax bill is likely to add up to.
That's absolutely crazy. Up to £1,755 more a year.
It's a bad thing for the poorer people because it's taking money out of their pockets.
I don't think it'll have a major impact, but obviously over a year it is quite a lot of money. There's things you can do with that. It would pay for a school uniform that I've just paid for recently, wouldn't it?
And so it is a gamble for Boris Johnson, but one that he believes will pay off. So the Prime Minister has done enough. In just under an hour, he is going to win this vote here in Parliament with only a few abstentions on his backbenches. But what MPs tell me is this is only the start of the process. They still hope to influence this policy. OK, Anushka Astana in the House of Parliament. Thank you.
Moving on now, the UK's lorry driver shortage has so far hit mainly stores and fast food outlets, but now it has spread to household rubbish collection. Tomorrow, the government's expected to announce it'll speed up the driver testing process to try to plug those gaps, which for councils now struggling with collections cannot come soon enough, as our consumer editor Chris Choi reports.
The same problem that's left shop shelves empty is now leading to bins being full as the lorry driver shortage hits waste collection across the UK.
I think people are fed up more than anything. The local council has informed us it was going to suspend the collection of garden waste material for 6 weeks over the summer period, which is when, you know, things grow the most.
Here in Somerset, they're training dustbin loaders to become refuse drivers. But they can't get test slots till the new year and now want government to intervene.
I'm looking forward to taking my test in the new year.
But you'd like to do your test earlier, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But there are no slots.
No, at this moment, no.
Major refuse firms told us they now have an average 15% driver vacancy rate. Our research pinpoints more than 20 areas with disrupted waste services. Some had to temporarily combine recycling with general refuse or suspend garden waste collections for periods. Some have warned households of delays emptying bins. Councils say they're prioritising to protect critical refuse services. But these problems could be far from over.
We will see that recycling rates will be affected as people are having to put in contingency measures.
And when it comes to waste disposal, refuse isn't the only problem. Sewage plants are struggling to get a chemical they use to treat wastewater.
We raised this various levels within government going back as far as May. We've highlighted our concerns at the potential risk and also highlight specific sectors such as water treatment.
We've learned government will now act on the lack of lorry driving tests within days, but goods that come into our homes and waste that goes out are already affected. Chris Choi, ITV News, Taunton.
Now, nearly 6 years after 130 people were killed by Islamist extremists during a night of terror and bloodshed in Paris, the trial began today of 20 men accused over those attacks. 14 of them were present in the specially constructed courtroom. Just one of the accused, Salah Abdeslam, is charged with murder. From Paris, here's our Europe editor, James Mates.
Almost 6 years after the worst terrorist attack in French history, they finally bring the one surviving attacker to court. Central Paris, around the Palais de Justice, locked down so that Salah Abdeslam and 13 others can face hundreds of victims and accusers over the next 9 months. 130 dead, 350 others wounded, hundreds more who survived that terrible night, but with their lives changed forever. They were coordinated attacks right across the French capital, planned and executed with calculated savagery. Olivier Laploux, who escaped with his wife through a rear entrance of the Bataclan, will go to the trial and give evidence.
When you are facing such horror,
don't forget, ITV News.
Barbary. And Barbary.
London is on weekdays at 6 o'clock with all the headlines.
The best answer you can give
tonight, London
people who attacked us is a
prepares to lock down again.
We'll start tonight with a developing story.
Being judged by mankind and not by their God or whatever excuse they find or whatever justification they find to those attacks.
But for others who'll be represented here by their lawyers, even 6 years later, this trial is not something they could go through.
Some don't want to come, some are themselves denying their own condition of victims. Some don't dare to come to Paris because it brings a lot of reminiscences.
The French will become acutely aware of this trial with the security disruption here affecting the centre of the city for many, many months. But most believe it a price worth paying to establish that the last word will be had by their justice system. Establishing guilt or otherwise will be just part of the task here. The court will also want to know who masterminded these attacks from afar and how much more could the French state have done to stop them. James Mates, ITV News, Paris.
And just a few days before the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks on the United States, 2 more victims were announced today. Painstaking DNA analysis revealed the identity of 47-year-old Dorothy Morgan. The other victim, a man whose family has asked his name not be published. Dorothy Morgan became the 1,646th person to be identified. Here, the Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, is tonight under fire for saying that he'd met the England footballer Marcus Rashford in an online video call, when in fact it was the rugby player Maro Itoje. He had seemingly confused the 2 sportsmen and said it was a genuine mistake. Our political correspondent Libby Vina joins us now. This is all pretty awkward, isn't it, for Gavin Williamson, Libby?
Yes, well, Gavin Williamson hasn't been short of critics during his time as Education Secretary, but I think this gaffe today, muddling up 2 young sportsmen who happen to be black, I think that won't exactly help his career prospects. In an interview with the London Evening Standard, he was asked had he met Marcus Rashford, and he replied, "We met over Zoom, and he seemed incredibly engaged, compassionate and charming, but then he had to shoot off. I didn't want to be the one that was holding him back from his training." The only problem was that he wasn't calling Marcus Rashford, but in fact the England rugby player Maro Itoje. It wasn't long before the 2 men took to Twitter to ridicule the Education Secretary, Marcus Rashford, tweeting, "Accent could have been a giveaway," and Maro Itoje saying, "Due to recent speculation, I thought it was necessary to confirm that I am not Marcus Rashford, and whilst we are here, my name is not Mario either." Well, later, Gavin Williamson issued a statement saying that it was a genuine mistake at the end of a wide-ranging interview. But I think many people will be asking tonight, if he can get that wrong, what can he get right?
Libby Vina at Westminster, thank you. OK, still to come on the ITV Evening News. Did he ever have TB at all? The row over Geronimo, the alpaca's post-mortem tests. Plus... Yeah, the very latest from New York, Emma Raducanu's historic US Open tie. Fingers crossed for that. Those stories and more after the break. Back. A dispute has broken out 9 days after Geronimo the alpaca was put down over the initial findings of a post-mortem examination. Supporters of Geronimo's owners say the findings show the animal did not have bovine tuberculosis. The UK's chief vet says further tests are needed. Juliette Bremner reports.
Dragged from his home on a Gloucestershire farm, the fight to save Geronimo may have been lost, but his supporters are adamant his death will not be in vain.
Shame on DEFRA! Shame on DEFRA!
Campaigners lined up today outside DEFRA, the government department they blame for killing the pet alpaca. They were armed with a post-mortem, which they insist shows that Geronimo didn't have bovine tuberculosis.
Shame on DEFRA!
He doesn't have TB. He never had TB. They knew that. They said he had a false positive, and then they thought, oh, I know, let's get rid of him. We'll just manipulate a test protocol so we can get rid of him.
Despite his cries, government vets removed Geronimo after 2 tests indicated antibodies for TB. But the post-mortem results suggest he was negative at the time he was put down.
We have found strongly suspicious lesions in some of the organs in his body. Post-mortem itself is quite a blunt tool. You look for lesions that you can see with your eye. They may be there microscopically, so you can't see them with your eye.
It could be Geronimo was like more than 20% of cattle who are killed following a positive TB test, but are negative at post-mortem as they've never had symptoms. Those who love the alpaca hotly dispute this, claiming they're being denied justice and truth. Juliette Bremner, ITV News.
In other news, the Home Secretary Priti Patel is meeting her French counterpart tonight to discuss the migrant crisis in the English Channel. The meeting came as scores more people arrived in makeshift boats and dinghies. These pictures were taken by the Eastbourne Lifeboat Service. And the father of the pop star, Britney Spears, has asked a court in the US to end his legal conservatorship of the singer's financial and personal affairs. It follows her legal attempt to get the arrangement revoked. Now, proud parents up and down the country have been smiling through the tears this week as their children prepare for the new school year. But there are 4 little ones whose first day at school will be particularly special. Born as quadruplets and 11 weeks premature, their mother calls them a miracle. Corrie went to meet the family.
It's a big week in the Talbot Ash household. Quadruplets Roman, Austin, Arlo and Rhea are ready and raring to start first day of school. Born 11 weeks early, it's a milestone mum Selena only dared dream of. Now her biggest worry is getting them ready in time in the mornings.
The organisation, getting out of the house for 8:30 in the morning, I think is going to be quite a challenge. But challenge accepted, because it'll be worth it when I can get home and have a cup of tea on my own.
For Selena, though, it's a special moment. She calls the quads her little miracles. Born through IVF, 29 weeks premature, they spent their first 2 months in hospital, weighing just 2 to 3 pounds each. Now happy and healthy and, well, a little mischievous.
I'm sure the boys can have good fun winding the teachers up and tricking them because they've started to realise they look alike. So, yeah, I think we're going to help the teachers out by having different colour socks each day until the boys realise and start swapping socks.
But Selena seems all set for their school adventure.
They've got PE jumpers, so 4 jumpers for that as well. So a big pile of jumpers for the boys.
Having spent £600 just on uniforms.
I don't want to think, oh my goodness, I'm going to stay up till midnight to try and get the washing done. I want to have enough spares.
She's even doing a dry run of the school drop-off before they step out together for real next week. Corrie, ITV News, Winchester.
And finally, Britain's newest young tennis star, Emma Raducanu, is, as we speak, playing for a piece of sporting history at the US Open. If she beats her opponent, Raducanu will get to the semi-finals. And remember, she's just 18. Geraint Vincent is watching the action.
From Great Britain, Emma Raducanu.
At the start of this summer, Emma Raducanu was a schoolgirl finishing her A-levels. At the end of it, she's a professional tennis player in New York in the US Open quarter-final. And the talent that has turned her into a sensation was on show early on, a blistering forehand down the line.
That's a confidence builder for Raducanu.
But her opponent today is the Olympic champion. Linda Bencic has plenty of shots of her own, and it was her that took the early lead. It's not just talent, though, that the British teenager brings to the court. There's spirit, too. And she fought back in a 20-shot rally which pushed both players to the limit. It was Emma that won the point on the way to claiming the first set.
Unbelievable.
The second set is shaping up to be as hard-fought as the first.
That's beautiful from Bencic.
This is a game of high quality at the business end of a Grand Slam tournament.
So clever.
And Emma Raducanu is playing with real authority against a much more experienced opponent. The new star of British tennis.
Oh, what a return.
Is still shining. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
Guess what? As we were watching that report, Emma Raducanu has won through to the semi-finals. She's only gone and done it, an historic win. And we will have a full report on News at 10 with Tom, of course. But from me and all the team, bye-bye.